Veronica, to our Voices Over Cancer podcast. Thank you so much for coming today. I know that you have recently shared your story in our 2022 print edition of Voices Over Cancer. And that was a unique story format. You shared your story, your husband shared his point of view, and then also your daughter shared her point of view. And that was a really amazing way to kind of bring the family's journey together. So thank you for sharing your story in our print publication. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. So we'll just start out with a real easy introduction of just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Veronica Moreno, and I've lived in Rome my whole life. I went to model, and then I got my degrees from Barry and was a teacher up until the time I was diagnosed with the cancer that I have. And then it got to the point where I wasn't able to keep up with things physically.
Sure.
And I had recently gotten married, and my daughter was 4, going into 5, and I just, wasn't able to do that anymore.
Sure.
So,
What grades did you teach?
I've taught a lot of different grades.
Okay.
My first job was teaching Title I. So I was working with children that needed help with reading and then test-taking skills. And then I taught for 3 years in Carsville. I did ESOL there, and then came back and taught at St. Mary's. I taught kindergarten there. And then I stayed home for a little while when I had Jordan and I'd actually taught college classes, which was scary.
Yeah.
I remember one of my supervisors had been one of my science teachers in high school. And so I told him I was scared. And he was like, well, just imagine that the adults are just bigger kids. And so, but I did education classes there.
Wow. So kindergarten through college.
Through college.
So
yes.
you got a little bit of everything.
I did, yes.
Wow.
My favorite is like pre-K kindergarten age. It's what I really loved and still do. I miss it a lot. But I've gotten to with Jordan, and then of course with the grandkids, I've kind of been able to fill that void a little bit. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, so always have lived in Rome.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's neat. So tell us a little bit about you were diagnosed in 2010. What kind of led up to, like, what was going on with you before, I guess, the diagnosis? What were you feeling sick, or what was going on?
The first time I ever got really sick, I was a senior in high school. And in high school, I was having a lot of headaches and was just really fatigued and everything. And I went through all of the testing to see if they thought that I might have brain tumor. That came back negative. And I was diagnosed with migraines at that time. And so then just kind of, it would like cycle through where I would have a lot of energy, but then not have a lot of energy. It would feel like I had the flu. And I say that because when I was finally diagnosed in 2010, I have medical records back from when I was like late high school and had graduated. And my husband and I were talking about this last night. He's like, why do you have those medical records? Well, when I graduated from high school, I had a parasailing accident on my senior trip. And so I had all that going on. So I had those records from that. Well, looking back, I was able to see where my numbers, like my red blood cells, white blood cells, the hematocrit, all that stuff was slowly started inching up. So when I was diagnosed in 2010, before that, I just felt like I had the flu all the time. And it would make me feel really bad because I, kept going to the doctor, and they were like, well, you need to lose weight. That was one of the things I heard a lot. And then that I was depressed. So I heard that for many years. And then I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, which made sense because I have an aunt who has fibromyalgia. And then the cancer that I have is actually a rare blood cancer. And at the time when I was diagnosed, it was still under the blood disorder window.
Gotcha.
So it was just, again, it was rare. It was one of those things typically found in men that were 60 and older, which I was neither. And It was just
So how'd they finally figure it out?
just lab work.
Okay.
You know, I went to my primary care physician once again, and they did a complete blood count, and there were some abnormalities. And so then they were referring me to someone that would know more.
Sure.
So I ended up being referred to hematology oncology. So, yeah. And at first it was mainly just watch and wait. And then I started having phlebotomies because basically what's happened with what I have, it's not like a traditional cancer with tumors and growths like that.
Right.
It's my bone marrow is overworking. It's overproducing red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. So it puts me at a higher risk to have a heart attack or a stroke and blood clots.
Sure. Yeah.
And so at first it was just have the phlebotomies. I want to say I was having them like every couple of weeks there at the beginning, as often as I could, which that's a story in itself. Because when I was younger, as soon as I was old enough, I started donating blood and felt really good about doing that. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't donate anymore because they don't know enough about what I have. So they would take all this rich blood out and then just have to throw it away. And at the time when I was diagnosed, one of my former students had a brain tumor and was needing platelet donations. And so it made me feel
You couldn't do it.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But Vincent, when I was able to have the phlebotomies here in Rome, Vincent would go with me and he would donate blood.
Sure.
While I had mine just removed.
Sure.
Yeah, therapeutically. So it was great.
So although, of course, it did not feel good to get the outcome of the diagnosis, did it give you any peace of mind to know at least this is what's been going on?
Yes, it did. It was like, it's one of those kind of weird things. We had peace knowing that we had an answer to what was going on and that it wasn't all just because I was depressed. I mean, yes, depression is a big thing.
Sure.
And, but it's like a lot of times with anything physical health, it can lead to issues with mental health. Because I questioned him like, okay, what is wrong with me?
Right,
Is this all in my head? It was like I felt like something was wrong. And I would, like I said, I would have the energy and like work hard to try to lose weight or to be able to do the things that I wanted to do. And then it was like I would hit this wall and then crash.
Right.
And so, and of course, that's one of the things that can happen also with fibromyalgia. My doctor at Emory, when I first saw him, he was like, "You don't have fibromyalgia." He said, "This is what you have, and I bet you have felt bad for a really long time." And of course, the water works.
I said you probably wanted to hug him.
We did.
Right.
Vincent and I both hugged him.
Right.
Because he like wrote out on the board, showed exactly what was happening within my bone marrow, and it was
made
just
sense.
like, it did.
Yeah.
So
treatment-wise, what do you have to do for treatment?
Well, like I said, in the beginning, it was an aspirin a day, and then the phlebotomies when my numbers were too high.
And you just have to monitor that, and then when they are too high, that's... Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And then, I guess in 2016, I think I think around 2016 was when I started going to Emory. And, because I had an episode with my heart, and we thought that, I was in hospital for a week and was told that I had, cardiac amyloidosis. So Mom and Jordan and I packed up and went to the amyloidosis clinic in Boston, and they said no. They did all the tests and said no, that the polycythemia vera needed to be treated more aggressively. And so I went back to Emory and then started on chemo. And so then I did oral chemo daily for 6 years and would go to Emory once every 3 months to have my labs done. And if I needed to have a phlebotomy in the infusion center, they'd do that and then put the saline back in. So I did that. And then the chemo stopped working.
Okay.
So then they switched me to, it's called Jakafi now, which is a targeted suppression drug. And I take it twice a day. And it's really expensive. But thankfully, there's programs that pay for it.
Sure.
Because then I have, I've always joked about being the oddball. So the rare one. But so I'll continue taking that.
Okay.
And hopefully it will work, and that hopefully it won't change and stop working.
And so you still go every 3 months?
I go every 3 months. Fortunately, I haven't had to have phlebotomy in a while because it is working.
It is working.
And yeah, I mean, it just, there's side effects from it. And so, but I try not to read the list of side effects.
Right.
Because it's really scary.
Sure.
And like, I'll wait till we get there.
No, you're good.
But I was going to say, like, with my verse, which has been my verse for over 20 years now, I'm just, with the things that have happened, like with the heart episode, with getting the cancer diagnosis, I've realized just how precious life is.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons I don't read the side effects a lot, because it's like, I know who's in control. And if something were to happen, then that's okay, because I feel like the time that I have been given since being the sickest that I was is a gift. So it's like my priorities completely changed.
Well, and that's what I was looking at. I know it, and I was trying to find in your story, and even it says my priorities changed immediately.
Yeah.
I'd always thought that I was a person who didn't take people or time for granted. But with the diagnosis and actually looking at a possible shortened life expectancy, I realized the things I had wanted in life or thought were important didn't seem to matter as much anymore.
Yeah.
And so what a perspective to share. And I feel like when someone has to face something that you are having to face, it definitely puts it, right in front of you. And so you have to analyze that and look at life differently. But for everybody who's listening or knows you, that's a gift to us for you to share that, because we don't need to wait for something to impact our life like that to try to take that advice to heart.
It's like that song, and I can't remember who sings it. That's one of the side effects from the medication. And of course, Jordan loves to say it's just because I'm getting old.
Right.
I turned 50 this year, and so I'm just like, no, it's the medication.
It's the medication.
But I can't remember who sings it with the Live Like You're Dying. I think it may be Tim McGraw.
Tim McGraw. Live Like You're Dying.
And so, of course, that came out before I had the diagnosis. And I believe it did. But so that's one of the things. It's like, we're all dying. And I know that's not something that we want to face. But like my former student that had the brain tumor, she was 9. And I taught her when she was 4. And so it was just, your priorities change, and you realize the things that the world tells you are important, they're not. What's most important is the time with your family. And of course, for me, it's my faith, and that is definitely what has got me through. And I have learned my mom was even saying something about this last night. I kind of get accused sometimes of being too Pollyanna-ish. But it's like I always try to look for the silver lining within things. And there have been so many blessings that have come from this cancer diagnosis. And like one of the huge ones I talk about, I may have written about it, I can't remember, was that I was able to help my dad too. And we kind of had an estranged relationship, but with me not being able to teach when he was at his sickest and on hospice, I was able to help him with things that had I been teaching full time,
you wouldn't have been able to.
I wouldn't have been able to do that. So, and just the time at home with Jordan that I got to have, and even when she was in public school, getting able to drop her off and pick her up, just,
Gifts.
Yes.
Yeah, gifts within the storm.
Yes. Very much.
So you talk about Jordan. Now, Jordan is, how old is Jordan now?
She's 19
19
now.
years old. And you said she was 5?
She was 4 when
Okay.
I was starting to get really sick, and then she was 5 when I was diagnosed, and we told her.
So how were you able to kind of navigate, or how, I guess, have you been able to navigate during this whole time, communicating with her what's going on with you? Of course, now as she's 19, you probably share more than when she was 4.
Yes.
But, like how do you guys, I guess, handle that?
Well, now that she's older, most of the time she goes with me to my appointments, and so they know her. Like my
Right.
caregiver, even the cardiologist, she knows her, and so they keep up with her. But when she was little, she knew that I didn't feel well, and I didn't have a lot of energy to do as much with her, especially when I was trying to teach and parent and keep the house and everything. So she knew that there was something off, and we told her, and part of that was because during the time when, and as you see in the pictures from one of our wedding pictures, our pianist at Rush Chapel had been diagnosed with cancer.
Mm.
And I remember asking her, well, because she asked Jordan asked her about her cancer. And so she said, well, what do I say to her? And I said, just tell her, in childlike terms. I
Right.
mean, she's going to understand. And so then shortly after that, Jordan wanted to get her hair cut so she could donate it to kids who had cancer. So it was like, we didn't sugarcoat anything,
Sure.
but we tried to remain calm because, of course, when I was diagnosed, Google, it was out there, and they always tell you when you get a diagnosis of anything, do not go to Dr. Google because they can have you dying in 2
Right.
days.
Yeah, for anything. Yes.
And so I did, I did go look at it, and
They told you not to, and you still did.
I still did it. Yes. I'm stubborn. I'm a May birthday, so
Right.
stubbornness. Plus, I'm the baby in the family,
Sure.
so just ask my brothers. The stubborn.
Yep.
So anyway, I looked, and sure enough, it got me upset, thinking, well, I only have this amount of time. She's this little, I'm going to miss out on all this stuff. But then I was reassured, and of course, my faith again strengthened, and I realized that, there have been times, like the parasailing accident, there have been times where I thought that my life was going to be cut short, but it was not.
Right.
So when it, I know who knows that day, and I'm just going to enjoy as much of life as I can while I can.
Right.
So,
what do you feel has been the biggest challenge during this journey?
Trying not to be too hard on myself, because, even though my priorities have changed, and I think I've done pretty well with that, I still, like, there are times during the school year that I really get sad that I'm missing out on things.
Sure.
Because I love frogs, and my classroom was decorated in frogs, and Dr. Seuss's birthday just passed, and so Read Across America was really big, and we do all those activities and lessons. But as soon as I start to feel bad or having my pity party, then it's like real quick I'm reminded of things could be worse, and they're not.
Right.
I'm still able to do a lot of things that friends that I have that have had other cancers have not been able to do, or that have also even passed, that are my age or younger. And so it just, I try to nip that in the bud really quick,
Right.
and not have my pity parties.
Sure.
So, because it is, when you look at it, I didn't spend all those years going to school to be a teacher to then get sick and not be able to teach. But, things just happen sometimes. And like what I try to tell Jordan is that we have a choice. No, we can't control the things that always happen to us, but we can control the choices that we make and how we respond to what has happened to us. So
that's powerful.
Yeah.
Where have you found, I guess, moments of support, or like, I know your faith has definitely provided you with a lot of support, but are there groups, because you have a very rare form of cancer? Is there a group that's just for people that face this, or how have you connected or found different support? Family, friends, what's helped you, I guess?
In the beginning, I really felt like an oddball, because I didn't know anybody else that had what I had. And then my husband ended up being in class with someone whose sister was diagnosed with what I had, and then she passed. So that was really scary, but
Sure.
because there's like with polycythemia vera, it can flip to myelofibrosis or leukemia because the way, if I understand it correctly, is that your bone marrow just gives out. Like it's just, which is right now it's like the opposite of leukemia.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of scary. But then with social media, there of course are groups for just about everything.
Right.
And it can be helpful, but it can also be really hurtful because, like I said, in the beginning when I was diagnosed, it wasn't classified as a cancer. It was a disorder. And there are people that will get on there and argue about that. Well, this is not cancer. It's just a blood disorder. And, if you're going to have a cancer, this is a good one to have. And I'm just like, no cancer is good.
Yeah,
so,
right.
And like everybody that has it handles it differently. I mean, it affects people differently. Because like I said, with my husband's friend's sister, I mean, she flipped really quick to myelofibrosis, I think it was, and then she passed away. So it is scary. It's not something you just, dismiss. But my family, my family and my friends have been supportive. There was, I guess, a time period in there where there was a lot of questions and just trying to understand what was going on. I wish there was more awareness and more support for it, but it's one of those things, again, it's rare. So it's like when you don't have a lot of people that have it, why would there be?
Right.
So, and then of course Summit Quest is awesome, which to me, that's the whole, goes back to Romans 8:28 because of how you and Vincent met in class.
Yeah,
and then that's how we found out about you.
Right. Yeah. And so we've been working with you guys now for, I don't even know how many years, for quite some time. And you guys have always, you have always been such a joy to have on any of our activities or our events. And, we love to have you guys be with us. And so kind of the verse that you base a lot of your outlook on is Romans 8:28. You want me to read that?
Yes.
So Romans 8:28, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And so, do you want to speak any more on that? I know you shared. Is there anything else you want to add to why that verse means so much? You kind of alluded to it, but is there any more you want to share?
Well, my cousin sent me that verse in a card when my ex-husband and I were going through a divorce. And that was a very hard time, obviously. It's one of those things, nobody really wants to go through that. But I just grabbed a hold of it and have seen it play out. It's like what they say about the hindsight's 20/20.
Sure.
When you look back, you can see God's hands in everything. And so, like I said, even this morning.
Yeah, when I said, hey, I've written this down because I know it was important in your story. You're like, I just heard them reference that on the radio.
It was Austin French, the Christian singer, was talking about it. And then, of course, his song about God being so good came on. And I was just like, wow.
Yeah. That is so cool. Is there any advice that you would offer to an individual facing a diagnosis or even to a family that's facing whether this specific journey or any sort of cancer journey?
I think with anything, not just cancer, you have to learn to be your own self-advocate. Because, like I said, for a while, I heard it was just lose weight and you're just depressed. And both of those are big things too that you need help with. But I knew something was wrong. I knew it. And I have heard so many stories from other people that said, because sometimes it doesn't show up something doesn't show up on this test. Well, so maybe you need to have this test done, or you just, the second opinion. That was one of the things that Vincent did say last night, is that, always be willing, especially if in your gut that something's not right. And then don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you get a diagnosis, a lot of times we think, oh, that's not going to happen to me. That happens to other people. And I've learned that with many things in life. And it can be isolating when you feel that way. But just to reach out, ask for help, get that second opinion or third opinion if you need it, and have faith.
Have faith.
Because as it says, nothing is impossible with God, and I truly believe that. I really do. My life has been a testimony to that. I'm not sure if I had shared with you or not, but I mean, literally my whole life. My mom wasn't supposed to be able to get pregnant when she got pregnant with me, and so I've heard that my whole life about being a miracle baby, a miracle child, and then just like I said, the different things that have happened that should have kept my life short, but did not.
But did not.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all that you shared today. I know, just something that came across my mind was you went through all your schooling, you had all this training to become a teacher, and I'm sure while you were a teacher, there's no doubt that you impacted many, many individuals, whether it's kindergarten all the way through college students. But you need to also know that just because you may not be a teacher today, that you're impacting people's lives every single day in so many ways by sharing your story, by sharing your journey, your testimony, and just being the person that you are. Like I said, it's always a blessing to have you come be a part of anything that we've had at Sunquest, and I just wanted to thank you for being who you are.
Well, we appreciate y'all so very much, and the different activities that we've been able to do, and just have that, fellowship with y'all. And
I look forward to many more adventures in the future.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.